Going
Hi.
on?
Hey,
Hi,
New York
everybody.
crew.
Uh-oh, we're having funky funks again.
Everybody sounds great to me.
Kiker, Adam and Valerie were just here. They just left.
Oh, fun.
We were playing Imbira on the back deck.
Really?
Yeah, Adam came over last night at 11:30, and we played until 2:30 in the morning. And then him and Valerie just came over, and Susan's here, and we all played on the back deck.
Wow, I didn't know that they were in New York.
Yes, they are, my dear. It was fun.
It sounds fun.
Yeah, it was fun. So, and he took my Imbira, he's taking it back to tune it to Musikiwa tuning. So when I get out there, it'll be tuned already.
Oh, that's perfect. That's great.
Lux, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What a treat when somebody tunes your Imbira for you. I love that.
Especially in advance. So we don't have to waste any time.
Totally. We can just jump right in and start playing.
Jump off the plane and start playing in Bavadita.
I hate tuning Imbiras. I'm good at tuning Imbiras, but I hate it. You know, it's like it's too much work.
Yeah, I
Okay,
do a
well,
lot of it. Yeah. It's a lot of work. And your ears get really crazy sometimes, especially in the lower register, you know?
Yeah, I do know. Yep. Well, you guys, I wanted to did we talk last week about the Chinyakare discussion at all? Did we have a reflection time on that? I wanted to just give people time to reflect on the Chinyakare discussion if we didn't do that already.
I don't think we did. Or maybe we did, I'm not sure.
Because I think since this was kind of like a makeup class, I think we just did the singing, right?
I thought the last class was a makeup and this was, I'm confused. I thought you were going to teach Chigamba's version of something.
I am today.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I just wanted to give people a chance to if you have any thoughts, if you have any lingering thoughts about Chinyakare, then that discussion, this is the time to share them.
Before that, I just want to mention that we played with Adam. We played in Bavadita, and then we took it to Gandanga and played it on that, and did Irene's singing that she taught me last time I was in Zimbabwe. It was so nice.
Great.
Yeah, really pretty.
I'm very happy about that. The dream is coming true, that we're meeting each other in real life and we get to actually play things together.
Oh no, and we played Gore Kore, and then we played that. No, we played Gore Kore on Gandanga.
Sweet.
Yeah.
Who played Hosho?
We played both then. No, our feet. We did some foot stomping, and Adam clapped when we played Mbavadita. Adam clapped because I wanted to sing with the kutsinira. Try singing with the kutsinira, and it was much easier when I heard the beat.
Yeah.
So that's what we did.
For sure.
Just a little report.
Cool.
Amazing, playing together.
It is pretty incredible stuff.
Yeah, so great.
I'm getting excited about camp up here too with Moyo. That's gonna be like the big party for me.
Are you going, Jim?
No, I can't make it that weekend. I'm so sorry. I want to be there, but I just can't do it. Next time, hopefully.
Yeah, next time for sure. I always try to do it that last weekend of September. That seems like
next year I'll keep that open. Yeah.
Yeah. All right, you guys. So let's do this. Let's get into Chigamba. All right. And I'm actually going to be sending you, I just wrapped up the teaching videos right now. So I'm going to be sending you tab notation and teaching videos for 3 different things this week. There's so much going on in that video that I was like, I'm just going to pull out a few different things. I feel like one thing wasn't quite enough, right? So one of those is going to be like a pamusoro part where we're just like taking out the bass note basically. And we're just using these upper register notes on the left hand, right? And that is a part that you can play fast. Actually, the pamusoro part works really well as a fast part. And then we're going to go ahead and add the basses back in so that we have a fast kushaura that we can play that has the basses. And then I did something else, which I like have never done before, which is that I just took this one cycle that Sekuru Jigama is playing at minute like 123 in the video. And I just transcribed it exactly. And I'm just teaching it. And, you know, usually I feel like, okay, that's not the best way to go with Sekuru Jigama's playing because he's all over the map, right? So if you take like one cycle and try to learn it exactly, you're getting like a little slice of a giant, you know, and it may or may not be representative of how he actually like plays. It may or may not be a good, you know, foundation for the song. So with Sekuru Jigama's playing, what I usually try to do is figure out what does he gravitate toward at any given point in the cycle, right? And I kind of put that together to get a like foundational part that we can work from, you know, rather than just imitating any one like actual cycle that he's played. But in this case, what he's playing is so crazy that when I sat down and tried to transcribe it, my mind just like exploded into 1,000 pieces. It took me like 20 minutes to transcribe this one cycle. I was just like, what the heck is going on? And I thought, you know, this would be a really cool thing to try to learn, just if nothing else, so that you can see the depths, you know, to which this music can go in the hands of a real master. And you know, really, really challenge yourself to play something that's really hard. It's like the most complicated thing I've ever seen or learned or anything, you know, without video, I would never have picked up any part of this variation that he's really doing there, you know, and it's all kind of complicated stuff on the right hand and like shifting between rhythmic patterns. Like the rhythmic pattern just keeps evolving, you know, as the cycle progresses. So even if we don't end up incorporating it actually into our playing, like I think it's going to be really useful to try to learn it just as a challenge in like both seeing and hearing what somebody can really do who's like an Mbira expert, and also then like upping our game in terms of like learning, like how well do we learn? What kinds of challenges do we present ourselves with when we learn, right? Because the more we learn and the more we push ourselves to learn hard things, the better we become as learners, right? So hopefully the next time you're confronted with something really complex, your brain will be like a little bit ahead in terms of like your ability to just learn that stuff. So those are the 3 different things we're going to be doing this week. Any thoughts, questions before I go on?
Wait, the
Tuning was
3
playing
things
in
are
that video.
the Gamba part and the Pamsora, and what's the third one?
They're all Chigamba parts. There's a Pamusoro part, a fast part, and a super fucking crazy part.
Oh, you mean fast, like that you can play when it gets fast?
Correct.
Right.
Got it.
What tuning was he playing in that video? Was it a?
I think it's Erica tuning, Erica's workshop tuning.
Oh,
Those are, you know, any Yamaropa tuning he has around the house is one that he's making for Erica and he's going to send it. Like he doesn't keep Yamaropa tunings around, but he usually has one around that he's like preparing for a shipment. So I'm assuming it's Erica's workshop tuning.
Okay.
Which isn't too far off from Musakiwa's. You can retune those Mbiras.
Yeah.
Musakiwa.
Yeah. Pretty close.
Yeah. It's kind of just far enough off to be annoying.
It's Cecily.
Sorry, I'm late.
No worries at all. Thanks for joining us.
I was engrossed in work and I suddenly went, oh, oops.
I know that feeling very well.
I was a bit more, I was just glad it wasn't like 4:40 my time. You know, I thought I'd missed it completely. So I was relieved to see, but sorry.
We're totally just getting started. So yeah, you haven't missed much. Any other questions on just, you know, what I've said so far? It is dinging over there. All right. So, you know, I think the thing that I really want to just reiterate, and I know I've said this before, is that for me, Sekuru Chigamba's playing, like one of the things it really does for us is challenge this idea that there is any such thing as like a basic part to any songs, a basic way to play the kushaura for Kore Kore or Mahororo or any song. Like I don't really think there is a single fixed way that most people actually play. I think that people are flowing through different options that they're aware of at any point in the cycle, right? And so they may have 3 different notes on the mbira that they could play at that particular moment, and they're choosing one of them, and they're doing it very fluidly, right? So if you learn in that way that here are some options that you could choose between, then you're improvising already. You don't have to learn how to improvise. You're learning the music as an improvisatory form, that these are some options you could play, right? And as a result, it is hard for mbira players to play exactly the same thing twice in a row, never mind 10 years apart, right? Because they don't know what the basic kushaura is. There is no basic kushaura that they default to, right? It's rather like, which options do they happen to exercise at that particular point in time? And obviously some people do this a lot more than others. It's like a spectrum. It's not either you do it or you don't. And I think Sekuru Chigamba is like an extreme example of that, right? He is extremely fluid. He is exercising a large number of options at any given point in time. And his playing like really gets it across that this is not about fixed parts that you learn and then you learn how to improvise on them. It's actually the opposite, that if we want a fixed part, we're going to have to like triage between all these different options that mbira players might invoke at any given point and come up with something that we feel is representative of those options, right? So what I did for this week is I kind of recorded I did some pre-recorded videos, because I thought, if I try to get up here with my mbira and just like play for you on Zoom, it's going to be frustrating, right? And I really want to kind of get at what's happening between Musikiwa's Mbabarira Kushaura and Sekuru Chigamba's version, right? So I'm going to just play the video so I can explain what some of the changes are that you're going to see when we transition from Musikiwa's Kushaura to Sekuru Chigamba's Pamusoro and fast parts. So let me just start with this video that just goes over, okay, we're keeping the basses in, we're not going the Pamusoro part yet, but what's the difference in the placement of the basses between those 2 different kushauras? So I'm just gonna screen share and we'll watch this short clip. All right, this is going to be just a very quick demonstration video. And in this video, I'm only going to play the first half of the first phrase. The point of this video is to kind of break down what is happening and show you what the differences are between the way we have been playing Mbabarira, Musikiwa's style, and Sekuru Chigamba also plays it this way. But now what we want to do is switch into that faster part that Sekuru Chigamba plays. So that part is going to displace this bass note. So we're used to starting here. Left, together, right, right. Left, together, right, right. And when we do that, we get and 1. So we have this pickup to the beat, and then we have this nice strong beat. It's hands together, and we have a bass note on the beat. So that really feels like a beat. And 1, right? And 1. It's a nice setup for us to get into the part and hear the beat very strongly. What happens in Sekuru Chigamba's faster part is that we don't have this nice pickup and this strong beat on the bass. Instead, the bass note becomes the pickup to the beat. So this is now on 3. And the beat is all by itself on this right hand finger note. So we have left, right, left, together, right, right. I'll do that again. We still have a pickup to the beat, and beat, beat, and beat, beat. But now the pickup is that bass note. So instead of being on the beat, it's on 3 of the triplet. And that can make this part a little bit tricky to hear. So I'm just gonna play this again. Here's Musikiwa style, which we've already learned. Here's Seikuru Chigama's fast part, which we're learning now. So I'm just going to play through Seikuru Chigama's fast part once, so you can hear that, and I will keep the beat as I do it. So that is what is happening with the shift of the beat in this new faster part. The bass notes are now always on 3 of the triplet and are acting as a pickup to the beat. And the beat is now going to be located mainly on the right hand. All right. Thoughts, questions about this change?
It's so beautiful.
Totally. Yeah. And again, Jim, like once you have these 2 options, I can either put the bass on the beat with a pickup on the Pamusoro register, or I can put the bass as a pickup to the beat. Suddenly you're playing, like you can be completely fluid.
Yeah.
Right. And
Yeah.
I don't know if you guys remember Mark Seidenfeld, like on one of the first days of this class saying, I can't even understand what Seikuru Chigama is doing. Well, that's because he has this flexibility about where he puts the bass notes, and every variation that he does, he can reinterpret the variation depending on whether the bass notes are on the beat or are on 3 of the triplet. And so it's a very simple principle, very, very simple principle. It's not even a big change in the hand pattern, really. But just if you master that simple principle, I can either put the bass on the beat with a pickup, or I can put the bass as the pickup. Then your playing just like explodes into something that is no longer a set fixed part that you're playing, but rather like you are free and you're exploring this musical terrain.
Yeah, and then he just has these choices of notes that he can use.
Totally. Absolutely, because then we can start doing all these like pitch substitutions.
Right.
And really this part is easier to play. It's not as easy to hear. Musikiwa's part is easier to hear because you have that big loud beat, right, with both hands. But this part is much easier to actually get in your fingers. Any other questions? Thoughts? Okay, I want to play another video that is just going to kind of demonstrate the Pamusoro part, just so you can hear it, right? And really the same thing is happening. The notes, even we've just taken that bass note and popped it up by an octave pretty much. But otherwise, the relationship of the part to the beat is pretty similar between that fast kushaura and the Pamusoro. So you could really think of them as just variations on the same way of playing. They're not even necessarily 2 different parts. You could think of it as just pitch substitutions within a single part, if that makes sense. Wait, okay, in this video, let me screen share. And I'm going to skip forward to where I start playing because I think I've already explained it enough. Here we go. Used to hearing the about in the last, but he doesn't actually ever seem to return to scale degree 4 on the right hand in that second. Oh yeah, okay. It's here on scale degree 4, as I talked about in the last Okay, so there's a little thing that I'm gonna skip over here, but these videos are all posted on the in the playlist, in the Bavarera playlist on YouTube, so you can go back to them. And I'm gonna skip over it because it's not gonna make sense completely until we talk about something else. So here we go.
First half of the phrase, and I'm so.
And as you might have noticed in this video, I'm not being consistent with my right hand, what it's doing. I'm moving around, right? And I've tried to put that in the tab notation too. So when you get the tab notation, you'll see like parentheses around certain notes or like other options written kind of like on top of that tab notation, just to kind of give you a sense for some of the simple things, you know, that Seikuru Chigamba is doing on the right hand with this part. Questions about the Pamusoro version? Are you like hearing how similar it is to that fast part, that once you get one, you kind of have the idea of the other one already?
Yeah, I'm just wondering your interpretation of Pamusoro. And Cosmos, I think, had, he always used that word, and he said that it was sort of a release and it related to the dancers. I'm wondering if you have any of your own personal ideas about why you would play Pamusoro or move to that.
Yeah, I mean, so Pamusoro just literally means like upper, right? Pamusoro just literally means upper. So there's no other meaning being conveyed there other than like about the registers of the Mbira, right? I will say that generally Zimbabweans favor parts that have bass notes. So if you went to a ceremony to perform and you only knew Pamusoro parts, people would not be happy. They would start saying, "Ridzai ma bass, toda ma bass, ridzai ma bass." And I've had this happen to me like at multiple ceremonies where people are yelling at me to play more bass notes. Sometimes it's on a song like Mugai Tiende where there are no more bass notes. Okay, the Kushaura doesn't have any bass notes. So this is a frustrating position as an Mbira player. You're like, well, this song just doesn't have any bass notes, dude. Like, what do you want me to do, right? So people definitely don't want to hear a Pamusoro part for the entire duration of a song, right? I think that's important to keep in mind. So I see Pamusoro parts as, I think when Sekuru Makaya says a release, that makes sense to me in a certain way of like, it's taking the energy back a notch, right? So you want to be strategic about how you use those parts that take the energy back, right? Especially if one of the principles guiding Mbira songs, in the way I see it, is a build in intensity. Mm-hmm. We're trying to build the song in intensity. So if at minute 4, you suddenly switch to a Pamusoro part and hang out there for like 3 minutes, that's not helping the build in intensity, right? On the other hand, if you've been playing the same song for 40 minutes at a ceremony and people are obviously dancing energetically and getting tired, you know, you can kind of decide, do people need a little do we need to pull it back for any reason? You know, if you want to pull it back, go ahead and put in a Pamusoto part. I would tend to play Pamusoto parts mainly at the beginning of a song, at the end of a song, or if my fingers get too tired to play anything else. But I would not tend to really go into a Pamusoto part in the middle of a song unless something is happening. Like maybe maybe somebody's brought a drum in and I can take like a little break for a while, or maybe we're singing and we're focusing on the singing and that's a good time for me to transition. Or maybe you just want to lighten the texture for a little while. Yeah, sure. Absolutely. You know, maybe the Quinceañera player starts doing something cool on the Pamusoto register and you join them. You know, absolutely it can be good too, because the other principle behind songs, the way I see it, is alternating sections of contrasting material. So definitely the Pamusoto part can get you there, right? So it helps you immensely with those alternating sections of contrasting material, but it doesn't help you build the intensity of the song in a lot of cases. In some cases it might, but I think it is important to realize how much people love to hear the bass notes.
Yeah. Would other players, if you went to Pamusoto, well, I mean, probably this is like a kind of a dumb question, but if you did that and you were a strong player, would other players kind of move with you and sort of release a little bit in their parts, or does?
Yeah, I mean, I think it depends. Ideally, I think ideally, yes, people are responding to each other, but our responses don't always take the same form, right? Like sometimes, you know, Tete might say like, you know, do you want to go out for sushi? And I'll be like, no, let's go out for ice cream. Sometimes I'll be like, yeah, let's go out for sushi. Let's do it. Let's go to that cool Japanese bar that you took me to that one time in Ramadan. But sometimes I'm going to be like, no, I feel like an ice cream. So let's go there. And sometimes I might be like, let's just stay home and hang out on the backyard. So, you know, I think it just depends. It's not like you play a Pamusoto part, so the other person will play a Pamusoto part too. But that could be one response, but it's not the only response. Maybe that person will play a bunch of basses to like fill in the gaps that you're leaving, depending on their interpretation of what the song needs and where it's going and what kind of dialogue you're having.
Mm-hmm. I always think of it as what we call, as a rock drummer, we call it a breakdown, where all the basses drop out and I'll stop using my bass drum. And it's just a complete release from this like crazy tension that's been happening. And then everybody just kind of like falls back a little bit, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. So, you know, thinking about the context of a ceremony again, that may be possible in some contexts and not in others. If people are really playing a lot of hand clapping patterns and a lot of rhythmic dancing and there's a drummer involved and 3 Hosho players, knock yourself out, play the Pamusoto part. All that's going to happen is that people are not going to hear your basses. They're not going to hear any of the beauty of the Pamusoto part, and it's going to be a total loss. Right. But if the ceremony, if it's like, you know, some time of the night where things are like actually pretty quiet and a lot of people are sleeping and you're trying to get people started up again, and so there's not a lot of other noise, and you start playing with a lot of basses and then you hit the Pamusoto and everybody can hear it, maybe that will like wake them up a little bit. And then you go back into when you go back into the basses, that's when it's really going to hit them. Right. So you might be doing it as a way of just like creating the space to then hit them with the basses. So I think, you know, it can work in some contexts and not in others.
Yeah. Good point.
Other thoughts or questions about the Pamusoto idea, the idea of a Pamusoto part, what it's good for, what it's not good for, you know, how we might use these new things that we're learning as part of our Mbavarira. All right. And I'll just say that you don't have to stick to one or the other. It's not like either you're playing the fast part or you're playing the Pamusoto part. Mix it up. Throw the basses in sometimes, and sometimes hit them on the upper register instead. And you don't have to be consistent within the cycle or even within the phrase. You could play the first half of the phrase with a bass note and the second half of the phrase with a Pamusoto note and just keep moving around. And that's the real challenge, is that once you get those 2 parts, how do you integrate them into a style of playing that is not like, I know part A and I know part B, and I'm going to play part A for 2 minutes and then move into part B for 2 minutes. But how do you see them as actually like, they're both just representing different kinds of options that are available to you at any point in time as an Mbira player? All right, I want to play a third video. And in this video, I want to talk about something that's happening in phrase 1. If we look at the Pamusoro part and we look at the fast part, there's this odd thing that happens. So I'm just going to play this last video so we can like kind of talk about that for a moment.
Okay, so now I want to talk about something that's happening in Seikuru Chigamba's parts. I am giving you a Pamusoro part, which again, Pamusoro means upper. So a Pamusoro part is a part that doesn't really have as many basses. It's mostly hang out in this register with the inclusion of these 2 notes, which kind of belong in this octave. So we're learning a Pamusoro part from Seikuru Chigamba, and we're also learning that faster part. The good news is the Pamusoro part and the fast part both function in the same way. They both have this left-hand note that is a pickup to the beat, and beat, and beat, right? So sometimes it's a bass. If we're in the Pamusoro part, it's an upper note. But they generally have a similar feeling. Now, the really interesting thing that I see happening is in Seikuru Chigamba's Pamusoro part, the first phrase plays the same thing twice on the right hand. And it's starting with this note both times, which if you read the tab notation is scale degree 4. But when Seikuru Chigamba is playing the fast part rather than the Pamusoro part, he doesn't play this 4 at all. Instead, he drops down to this note, which is 7 the first time. And then we get this note, which is scale degree 5. So in the Pamusoro version, he's playing these notes. But in the fast version, he's playing this. So these 2 notes that he's choosing between 4 and 5, they don't play together nicely. They don't sound good together. They're only 1 step apart, and that produces dissonance rather than consonance. It doesn't really fit into a triadic harmony model of music, right? And this gets us back to how Mbira music is really more of horizontal musical thinking than vertical musical thinking. It's not about chords and Western triadic harmonies. It's about creating melodies within this circular pattern that we are developing on the Mbira. So sometimes we get places where either of 2 notes can be correct, and those 2 notes are only 1 step away from each other on the keyboard. So this is just something that you have to develop some flexibility with, that sometimes somebody could be playing scale degree 4 in this place in the first phrase. And sometimes somebody could be playing scale degree 5 if they're playing this part. And so as a quinceañera player, or even if you're playing Kushaura in an ensemble with someone, you want to kind of try to figure out what they seem to be mostly doing, but also realize that they may change in the middle of the song. And so there may be moments of kind of fleeting dissonance in the cycle, and that's okay. It's not something that you have to eliminate. It's actually a product of the way Mbira players think and develop their lines. And if you want more on this, I really recommend Erica Azim's article on teaching Americans how to think about Mbira and hear Mbira more like Zimbabweans do. So that's just a little bit about what I see happening between the Pamusoro and the fast parts, so that you don't get confused and think there must be a mistake in one of these parts. One of them goes here and one of them goes here at the same time in the cycle. it isn't a mistake. It's two different options that Sekuro Chigamba is exercising as he plays and develops this song.
Thoughts, questions?
I love it.
Yeah.
I mean, it actually makes musical sense. You know, it's a kind of progression that seems natural to me, you know, a different progression, but one that
Yeah.
makes sense.
Absolutely. Melodically, both of those lines make sense. But if we try to think about them vertically,
Right.
it seems as though something's out of place in one of them, that one of them must be wrong.
I have not heard this term Pamasoro before, and I wasn't sure they'd say anything because I'm.
Uh-oh, that's Cecily who froze, isn't it? It's not me this time. She'll come back. We'll give her a chance to come back. While we're waiting for her, Gary, are you there? He may be, he may not be. Gary picked up on a place in the Kushaura where a similar thing is happening between Musikiwa and Sekuro Chigamba's, parts, like where Musikiwa plays these notes at the beginning of phrase 4, and Sekuro Chigamba plays these notes. So Musikiwa wants to play scale degree 3 there. Sekuro Chigamba wants to play scale degree 4 there, right? So this is another place where we just kind of have a similar thing happening at the same time. Cecily, you want to try again?
Yeah, the timing was brilliant. I've not heard the word Pamasoro before, and I wasn't sure whether to ask because I feel like maybe everybody else is already familiar with that. But I was just wondering if you could sum it up briefly for me.
Yeah, musoro means like your head. Musoro. So pa means like at. It's like a prefix that indicates a place. So pa musoro just basically means upper or like on top, right? If I say get the cup down from the fridge, I would say like dipe cup iri pa musoro pe fridge. Right? So on top or upper. Yeah, that's all it means.
But it sounds like it's a consistent thing in Mbira songs.
Yeah, a lot of songs will have a pamusoro part, or if they don't, you could make one up. You could come up with them. So that the concept is just, can you drop the basses? In a lot of places, it's can you get rid of the basses somehow? How could you get rid of the basses? This is a question Mbira players are always asking themselves. How could you get rid of the basses? Or how could you add some basses in, right? Those are two really good Mbira questions. And often you find that when you try to take basses out, you also come up with a simpler part that has less notes and is easier to play, right? So I'll just give you an example of Musikiwa's Nema Musasa. Musikiwa plays Nema Musasa like this. This is his basic pattern for Nema Musasa. It's quite a busy part and it has a lot of basses in it. It's pretty hard to play as a result. But if I just take the basses out, I get this. So, that's the same part, but just with and without the basses. In one style, it's just a pamusoro style of playing that part, right? And I could do that on lots of different songs. So often Mbira players will switch to a pamusoro part when the going gets tough. I cannot play that kushaura for the entire song. 7 minutes at tempo on stage, like forget it. But if I go into the pamusoro part, then I can give myself a break and hopefully at some point I can start adding the basses back in even if it's not all of the basses, even if it's like a hybrid part, right? Where I'm just playing as many of them as I can get in. So let's say I decide I can play one bass per phrase. And maybe from there, I try 2 basses per phrase, you know, and then I think, okay, can I sustain that? Like maybe I can. So, you know, it doesn't have to be that you're either playing all the basses or you're playing the Pamusoro part. It can just be that you're doing 1 bass per phrase instead of 3 or instead of 2, or that you just switch back and forth really a lot, right? So I'll try to play in Bavaria going back and forth between the Pamusoro, the fast part, and the Musikiwa part, but like not going back and forth like every 3 rounds, but just continuously. In the middle of my playing, I'm just continuously switching between them, and we'll see how that goes. Right. So what I'm playing right now doesn't sound like any part at all. It sounds like I'm a great Mbira master, but I'm not a great Mbira master. It's just that I know 3 different parts from Bavaria, a Pamusoro one, a fast one, and a not so fast one. And I'm fluid. I'm able to switch back and forth between them at any moment in the cycle, and I'm doing it continuously. I'm just refusing to play one of those parts that I know. I'm playing them all at the same time, right? So this is what Sekuru Chigamba's playing looks like most of the time. He's not playing a part. He's just continuously moving back and forth between all of the things that he knows. We tend to play parts. We tend to learn parts, then we play them. How do we get beyond that?
Correct me if I'm wrong, but a lot of times in playing Pamusoro, not all the time, but it has to do with when you're playing octaves, dropping out the lower octave.
Yep.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. And sometimes people play Pamusoro parts just because it's nice to have a Pamusoro part, not because it's saving them any effort. So I'll do a Nyamaropa one. This is Musikiwa again. So a lot of us know Nyamaropa, right? Right. That Pamusoro part is not saving me any time or effort, nothing, but it's just nice to have the, you know, option of playing something different. Yeah. These are great questions, Cecily. That's a great question about the Pamusoro part, right? Because it gets us into like principles. The Pamusoro is a principle, is a style that could in theory be applied to any song, right? So it's a really good way to think about like, how do Mbira players think about these songs? Oh, they think about them in terms of octaves. bases versus not. And that opens up a whole world of like how you structure a song, how you cope when things get fast. All of those things are involved, like in the Pamosoro part. Anything else, you guys? Other thoughts, questions? So, I think that class, we could just leave class a little bit on the short side today because it's going to be a long haul to really like get all that material. If you really try to learn all of those parts and don't feel compelled to learn them all. If what you want to get is the Pamosoro part, do that because it functions as a fast part too, right? The Pamosoro part will get you to be able to play much faster. It's just as fast as the part I'm calling a fast part, right? So you could just learn that one. Or you could learn that one and the fast part with the bases, but forget about that really complicated thing that Sekuro Chigamba is doing. I mean, I only really put that thing up there for people who are like super advanced Mbira players and want a super hard challenge. Like it's really the hardest thing I've ever tried to learn.
You didn't say that tonight yet,
What?
did you?
No, I haven't played that yet. I put together a teaching video for that one, just now and put it up there. I'm in the process of editing it to put it up there. So it will be up soon. And I'll send out an email tomorrow with like links and the tab notation and all that good stuff. I guess that one other announcement I should make is ZimFest. We don't have class this coming week because it's ZimFest. So instead, Musakiwa and I will be co-teaching a singing class on Friday afternoon for Taire Bambuyane Handa and an Mbira class on Sunday at 8 at the normal class time for this class. So I got all the videos. They look really good. For the singing, he did like one video just with the words and then one video with the singing with the Mbira. There's one video of him just playing the song and singing it so we can really get a sense for like how he develops it. He's really put in a lot of time and effort into getting this together, and his performance videos are also really like clear. They filmed him from the front so we see him but we don't see his hands. I kind of wish we had footage of his hands, but I think considering the large distance and the fact that I couldn't be at the shoot, it turned out really well. So I'm happy about that and looking forward to those workshops. So if you're interested, please sign up for the ZimFest workshops, and we will have our last class a week later.
Will we have, I'm going to be there. Will we have access to those videos after the class?
Totally.
Zim-
Absolutely. Yes. Yep.
Right.
Anything
So
else?
class is the week that we're in Colorado, right? The last class?
Yes, the last class is the week that we're in Colorado. So me and you and Adam can all join together from Colorado.
Got it.
You guys can help me teach class on that day. We'll just co-teach.
Beautiful.
Yeah. Anything else, you guys?
I just want to say that your classes are my dream classes for Mbira learning. Because of the improvisation and just, you know what I'm saying.
Yeah, I'm so
And
glad.
Cosmos would be the opposite of Sakura Chigamba in that he has a real, and he was my main teacher. So it was always like, this is the way to do it, which I know was great for me, but I just love this openness. And so thank you.
Yeah, and Jim, that does lead me to say that on Sunday, Maggie pointed out that we conditioned our Zimbabwean teachers to do that.
Right.
And that Cosmos in particular was conditioned by Paul Berliner since the 70s to do that.
Exactly.
And that, in this new set of books they wrote, The Art of Mbira, there's Paul trying to create this like filing cabinet with everything neatly organized and exactly the right part, and did we get all the notes right, and is it consistent, and did I miss anything, and here are all the parts for this song, and we'll put them here, and then here are all the parts for this song. And so you can open the drawer and just pull out the file and get the sheet, and you're like, everything is correct. It's been 100,000 times, over checked for accuracy. But then we get these places in the book where Sekuru Magaya is saying, but Paul, I don't think of the music in the way that you think of the music. For me, it only comes alive in performance. And when it comes alive in performance, I do different things and I don't play it the same way every time. So even though Cosmas is the person who perhaps is the most straight of all of our teachers, right? The most like, here's a part that you can play. As opposed to Sekuru Chigama was on the opposite end. Even though Cosmas was the most like that, he still said, it really only comes alive for me in performance, and then I play things differently, and I don't necessarily have, they're not parts, right? So even him, I would add those caveats, that one, he was kind of conditioned by us, and then two, he did push back a little bit against Paul's desire to have the filing cabinet stuffed with Mbira parts.
Well, in playing in his village with all the Manduro and Mbira players, I learned that it wasn't, when we played, it wasn't the parts that he taught us. It was very open and, yeah.
Glad you brought that up, Jim, because I've been thinking that, and I was just going with the flow. But yeah, I remember feeling that or hearing that from Cosmas, about things being particular. So that's really good to know, Jennifer, that it's maybe enforced a bit.
Yeah. And when I would do things that departed from what he played, he was always very encouraging, right? Like if I played something with a pitch substitution, or he never said, that's not what I taught you, right?
Oh, yeah, he would love it.
So I think he wanted people just to know what they knew and what they didn't know, right? More so than even having everyone play things exactly the same. I don't think he really wanted everyone to play everything exactly the same. I think he just wanted people to know whether or not they knew the song. And, Patience is also a little more on that end, the Sekuru Magai end, that she is a little more consistent and stable in how she plays songs and parts from one time to another, or throughout a single performance, or her cycle is likely to be less busy and less fluid than Sekuru Chigamba's, So that's why I'm saying it is a spectrum. Not everyone plays in the same way or does this to the same extent, but I do think everyone does it to some extent.
He did
go ahead.
a very short story. We were learning Dande, and I knew Dande, from I can't remember where, and he taught it, and then he wanted us all to play it for him. And when I played it, I said, well, I'm going to play it, but I'm going to play the one that I know. And he said, no, I want you to play the one that I taught you. And after I know you can play that, you can play whatever you want. So he kind of wanted you to learn his basic part, I guess, or whatever. I don't know why, it was like funny. But, after that, it was open.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I do think, Jim, that also, people have styles. People have schools. There's like schools, stylistic schools within the Mbira tradition. And so one thing that is annoying is when people won't play in your style or school of Mbira, even after you've coached them in what to do. Like if they start leaving the style, because Dande in particular, that song, people do not see it in the same way.
Right.
The way it turns around in phrase 4 can be really different and they don't work together. Those Dandes are not compatible, right? So especially for Dande, I could definitely see somebody saying like, no, please play it in the way that I taught. I'm trying to get you to a point where we can play together nicely, So with some songs especially, but also, you know, this is why some Mbira players really mesh and work together really well, and others maybe not as well, right? Musikiwa and Sekuru Chigamba play together very well. They're both very fulfilled when they play together, you know. I remember going to see Frederick Mujuru in Zimbabwe, and we ended up playing together, or maybe it was here, but we don't normally meet. You know, he's not one of my teachers. He's not somebody I've played with a lot, and we were playing together, and he said, "Oh yeah, like you can really play Mbira. You really play the way I like Mbira music." So sometimes you just meet up with people and you're like, "Yes, we play together in the same style and our way of playing works." And so for Mujuru too, I think he's in that same, you know, school with Chigamba and Musikiwa, that they play in a similar way and it all works together. But you definitely meet up with other Mbira players who you're like, this is not how I play, and this doesn't really work that well, you know? Could be for a number of reasons. It could be that people like to play mix different tunings, and that's not how you like to play. It could be that people do that annoying thing where they try to cover all the high lines, like they're coming from an Mbira orchestra and they're just playing all the high notes, and you're like, that's not how I like to play. It's not meshing well. Or it could be that their nande doesn't look like your nande and it just is dissonant, and you're like, this isn't working, right? So there are better and worse fits in the Mbira world.
Yeah.
Cecily, did you want to ask?
I was just gonna say, it's just really fascinating. I'm learning so much. And I think this also probably explains why I've had a harder time learning from Sekiwe.
Because
yes.
you mainly studied with Sekuro Magaya?
No, and honestly, it's been, bits and pieces, here and there. It's been equal between them, I think. But patience, I find really easy to learn from. Not that it's not easy to learn the songs necessarily, because I don't get them that fast. I think I'm getting better as I go, but her teaching style, I think somehow just clicks for me. And same with Cosmas. And then Musikiwe is the hardest one for me. I mean, I've learned from him and it's just nothing. I got nothing.
Yeah. You if you ever are in an experience, in Mbira learning experience with Sekuro Chigamba, you're going to be like, wow, man, he makes Musikiwe look like a really straightforward, like easy teacher. Sekuro Chigamba, you're just like, I mean, he's watching a soccer game with the sound on and he just keeps playing and he won't stop. That's basically the lesson. You're like, okay, well, that was helpful. And he says he likes working with beginners the best because they don't have a sense yet for how Mbira should be taught, and they can get more from his style of playing than people who come in with the expectation of, we're going to do the right hand, then the left hand, then this, then that, and the other. Cecily, I will say that I do find it helpful for people to have one or two main Mbira teachers. And I don't care who it is. Is it Irene Chigamba and Wiri Chigonga in the case of Nora? Like, those are probably your two primary Mbira teachers, right, Nora? Irene and Wiri? Okay, so great. And my primary teachers are Sekuro Chigamba and Musikiwa Chingodza, right? We have different teachers. Although, Irene is in the same family as Sekuro Chigamba, we have different primary teachers. But when we get together, we can play really, really well together. And, I think it doesn't really matter who your teacher is, one or two, or maybe three teachers who you dedicate yourself to studying with. But I think just that process of really going as far as you can with one person in their style, or a few people in their styles, is going to make you a much better Mbira player than picking from here and there, right? Because when you pick from here and there, you never develop.
It's not.
Yeah, your
sound. It's not really. Is my sound back?
Yeah, it's cutting out.
It's more a case of grabbing the opportunity when I've had. Okay.
Yeah.
It's more a case of grabbing the opportunity when I can.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And like a lot of us, that is the situation that we're in because we're here. And one year Musikiwa comes through, and then the next year Sekuro Magaya comes through, and then the next year Patience comes through, So a lot of us, that is the way that we learn, I do think if you have the chance to go to Zimbabwe, am I still with you guys? Okay. Can you guys hear me again?
Yeah, yeah.
I do think if you have the chance to go to Zimbabwe, even if it's for 2 weeks, pick that one person whose style you like and go stay with them. Like, don't go around and try to meet all the different Mbira players, right? Because you're not going to come back with like anything really. But if you can study with the same person, even every day for 2 weeks, you're going to make a lot more progress, right? Or if you can approach it like, Musiki was coming, or Patience is coming. I'm gonna hit her when she's in Boulder, and I'm gonna go visit her when she's in Oregon, and I'm gonna try to hit her 3 times on her trip, and then that's gonna be my main in Mbira learning for the next 2 years. It can be really helpful to just. It sounds like you have a clear idea. Like Patience is a good teacher for you. I would just try to study with her as much as you can, or listen to her CDs as much as you can. Just try to really get into that style of playing, because I do think no matter who it is, having one primary teacher is really helpful.
Yeah, I did do that actually. I did go to. She was here, and then I followed her to California. I did get called a stalker, but not by Patience.
Perfect. You're doing exactly the right thing. Absolutely. Yeah.
That's good to know.
All right, you guys, it's always fun. I really enjoy class. Jim, I think I enjoy it just as much as you do.
Good.
It's really fun. Eric, where are you right now? I forget where you're living these days.
I'm in New York City right now.
Okay.
East Side. Yeah, I went to, I think, Nora's class one time, or just at Tompkins Park one time. But then I didn't return after that. I'm sorry, Nora.
Yeah.
Okay.
Tete, you should text Eric or email him, remind him about those Tuesday gatherings.
Yeah.
I think you're on the email list, right?
Yeah, I am. Yeah.
Okay. Cool.
I just need to check my emails.
I just want to say one thing about when you were talking about the different styles, because another main teacher of mine was Chartwell, for about several years there. But he didn't play any variations at all or teach them. And when he played, he would just play one part, like with a monster groove and beautiful singing.
Mm-hmm.
But he didn't really talk about he didn't really improvise or play that way at all.
That's true, yeah.
Yeah.
But he would never complain, like in Maharoro, if I played a Kutaneta part that I learned from Cosmos, he would say, that's great, He would never, he just, if it was grooving, he was happy, Good point, Nora, yeah. And singing was very important to him.
Yeah, absolutely. That is interesting, Tete. I hadn't thought about his style of playing. But I would be surprised if he really didn't vary things at all. I would be willing to bet that there was some variation happening.
But not a lot, because I played with him a lot, and he would just like play the same thing, and it was like such a heavy groove, and his singing was so beautiful it was really about the groove and his singing. He didn't vary a lot.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It was very different style of playing than other people.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and also many of his interpretations of songs didn't go with like Sekuru Jigamba, like their Nyuchis do not go together, right? So again, we're just seeing a different school of playing, the Nutiro family, and his brothers played in Mbira, and so it's a whole thing out there in Nomoshawa, but it doesn't really map onto the Chigamba style, Chigamba Mujuru Chingodza kind of like nucleus, right?
The other thing he was very strong at, the notes that you were playing were the notes that you were singing. That was a big part. No matter what part he was teaching you, Kutsunira or Kushaora,
Yeah.
you were playing the notes that you were singing.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
that was a big lesson for me. Yeah.
absolutely. All right. I should call it a day because I have to go pick up a friend whose car was getting an inspection. They need a ride home from work. So I have to go pick them up in like 10 minutes. Eric, I'm going to send you an email because camp is happening. Camp Nyagunwe is happening at the end of September, and I don't think I included you on that list. So I'm just going to send that your way in case you're interested in joining us for camp. And
Sounds good. Yeah, I'll be
all
on the
right.
lookout now.
Great. And Cecily, if you feel like coming down to the Western Slope, hit us up. Me and Nora and Adam will all be chilling down there in Paonia.
So is it definitely happening?
It is, and I guess we're going to do workshops on Saturday and Sunday, like the 14th and 15th. We're going to do kind of like 2 or 3
Right.
workshops a day. And I think Catherine Hunsaker might be coming down from Boulder. So if you are interested in coming, you might touch base with her and see if she wants to carpool or something too.
Oh, cool. And how long are you two going to be there for?
From the 9th to the
Oh, okay.
16th,
Oh, wow. That's awesome.
we're hanging out.
Nice.
Fun.
All right, you guys, have a great week. See you next week at ZimFest.
Yeah.
Oh, wait,
take care.
Jennifer.
Thanks,
Sorry.
Jennifer.
Bye.
Bye.